would be great if someone would answer this yet again. Milan?
I can hear you here.
Okay, so you, okay, great. So I will talk about sustainability in research computing. I'm Sandra Gesing from the University of Notre Dame. I'm a computational scientist at the Center for Research Computing and a research assistant professor at the Computer Science and Engineering Department. And sustainability has a couple of facets for me. One side is really from academia. That I'm 12 years in academia. I was 12 years in enterprise IT, so I have a little bit different view maybe on a couple of topics. So I have half my working life in academia, half in enterprise IT, so my views might be sometimes a little bit different. So for sustainability in general, because sustainability normally people think about, yes, climate change, biodiversity, things like that. But then look up one of the definitions I really like from the University of New Hampshire. We define sustainability as what sustains us as diverse people and communities. From clean air, water to healthcare, education, and art, and making decisions in our individual and collective life with this big picture in mind. And sustainability for our research community is not so different, and it's local and global. And I would even say sustainability is not a local problem, it's a community problem. And we have to consider both the past and the future. And I really like their explanation or their graphics about sustainability. So if we translate it, what you can see here, what they've seen with sustainability in general, if you look, for example, at the curriculum, I would say hard skills and soft skills. And I don't avoid the term soft skills, even though I know that some people don't like it so much. Or if you look at operations, in research computing, you look at hardware, software, at teams. Remember the four phasings? Or research itself. It's again, there's research in hardware, there's research in software, there are new algorithms. And there's, of course, the research, domain research. And the next action at the bottom of the graphic is engagement. That's very, very important. So you engage with researchers, you engage with institutions, key people, with funding bodies, with the CI community in general. And then we look at the leads. So yeah, they're talking about climate. We can talk about the climate between research and facilitation. We had already this topic that it's not always easy to have the same language, that maybe faculty does not always take everything serious. You are saying, and sometimes you vice versa think you don't understand them, or you don't like what they're saying, or you think, oh, that feels which is not interesting for me. Or the culture, the difference between innovation and maintenance, especially if you look also at funding and resources, which I have put under food. If you look at this circle, and biodiversity, we can directly translate this in diversity in STEM. We all know that it's really good to have diversity in STEM, but we have also a problem in the US that in STEM we need to engage more minorities, because in the US minorities the percentage is decreasing, but not decreasing in STEM. And we don't want to leave all this really brilliant new knowledge and brilliant, let's say, young researchers not being in STEM. We want to workforce development. So if we heard about the four phasing, and I said already, social sustainability is not a local effort, it's a community effort. You are not alone. And this is a picture, by the way, from last year's ACI virtual residency workshop. So this And most of you, or 50% of you, are the second, third, or fourth time here. So you know that you're not alone. So what are we concerned with in sustainability for cyber infrastructure? I would say, first of all, we have to get to know our users. And that is really the diverse research domains, the faculty, the postdocs, the PhD students, and all the people you interact with, but also the stakeholders. So at your host institute, but also the funding bodies. And we talked a lot about NSF, but there are so many more. The NIH, UE, DoD, DARPA, Move Foundation. And you have partners in projects, in initiatives, in ACI reps, experienced IT people you can work with. And we haven't talked yet in this workshop about volunteers. So contributors to open source or open science. So who are so interested in part of what you are doing, or the researchers are doing you are working with, that they spend their leisure time on it. And with all the open source community movement, we shouldn't really underestimate them. And especially in total, the different groups, we should have a look at their challenges and their goals. And yes, they need, like we also need it, we need proposals, publications, and funding and support. But often their challenges are our or your challenges. So they want computing resources, they want data analytics, and they have, for example, preservation needs. We haven't talked about preservation and reproducibility at all yet, but that goes. So, for example, we have to bridge the gap to data sharing. One thing is really that researchers often are overwhelmed, that they have to share data, that they have to make it openly accessible. If they would like to do it, they have always plenty of data. They have 3 years of project. At the end of the project, the funding bodies ask them to share it openly, and also the different stages of the data. And then they're sitting there and they don't know what is an efficient way to do this now. How do I get from all the different clusters, maybe local computers, they have distributed their data, how do they get it now really preserved? And really data curation typically and retroactively. And I worked with fully at the .NET library together because it's always the same. Most of the people are coming at the end of the project, and then we should preserve all the data which was created during a 3, 4, 5-year project. And of course, the metadata is incomplete, and it's a much bigger task to do this. And there are pressures from the outside, like the White House OCP public access memo, which says that really every unclassified research should be stored and publicly accessible to search, retrieve, and analyze. I think this is part of the sustainability problem of data, of research computing. So we should have a look not only at financial, but also at non-financial support. And there are free resources on campus. That sounds almost, like going down the rabbit hole. Am I allowed to use this phrase in the group? Paraphrasing. So if you have on campus people like digital librarians, who has on campus digital librarians who are really working also like, for example, this containerization, this data preservation on a digital level? Who of you have? Who doesn't know whether the library on your campus is doing this? So who of you is working with librarians on your campus to help you with data preservation needs? This is hard, huh?
I work with the admin side. So I work with the computer admins on the systems.
So they have a preservation system, and you help them on the admin side, or you help them to setting up the preservation system.
Like the storage itself, so we provide the storage in this.
But they have an environment where users can go to. Only one question to TV Land. Did you hear what was said in the room? Is there an answer? Let's see. So we discussed, this meeting and coming louder than the speaker. Oh, we talked about that, for example, the librarians asked to have set up a storage. I'm walking out of storage. But that the admin side, that they set up their own environment for digital preservation. But so only to give an anecdote about working with libraries. So for centuries, I mean, that is their job, data preservation, data analysis, data analytics, to give it, or to make it findable, searchable. Why not using the knowledge, what we need for sustainability in research computing? Why not working with them together? And normally they earn hard money. And they're interested in projects also to make their life easier. Not that people are coming at the end of the project life cycle to them. So that would be good. And some of them have programming skills. So reaching out to them could help you with sustaining a team which has experience in this area. Do you have data scientists on campus? Half is also okay. I know, whatever you understand under data scientists, that's the other problem. You don't have a real definition, but let's say people who know about machine learning, metadata, ontology, statistics. Do you have people like that on campus? Yeah. So who doesn't have any wealth of campus with this knowledge? No research area, no hard money. Oh, or you just don't know it. Okay, I don't know how to rephrase this question now because I had about 6 people who said, oh, we have that. 0 people don't. What kind of group did I miss?
Well, we have, in the last year, we have formed a data science Rust area on campus, which has,
You know what? I change a little. Everyone who says something has to come to the front and speak here because I think the TV Land doesn't hear you.
Can the TV Land hear me?
I guess it's with the shouting, you'd be all right.
Yes. Okay, so sorry for those in the room. I will speak loudly so that TV Land can hear me. Over the last year, we have been working to create a data science and digital scholarship campus thrust, which involves a lot of different resource marshaling. But in answer to your specific question, I think we have many of those facets either covered in whole or in part by different people. There's no one person who encapsulates a data scientist on our campus, but we have a lot of people with interests in all of those areas, and we're trying to work towards how we can more comprehensively together in a kind of umbrella way so that we can offer campus services to students, other faculty, staff who want to leverage these things. And we are working in conjunction with the library, to go back a couple of questions ago. And it's interesting to see how those partnerships are working, given the library's focus on things like the institutional repository and being able to be the institutional memory of Lafayette College. And what does that mean versus, say, ITS's interest in the more technical side of that stuff and the data life cycle and understanding how to make data sets accessible, discoverable, usable, secure, whatever it may be. And so I think it's a very powerful partnership that we're getting in place. But yeah, that's the answer to your question. I don't think it's a yes or no for us, and I doubt it is for many campuses in general. Like, that's.
Absolutely. I didn't want to say you have to have this knowledge in one person. I only wanted to say, are there people who have knowledge about this you could work together with?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I asked the question again. So I did ask the question, who has people who have knowledge in machine learning, metadata, ontology, statistics on campus you could work with? Woohoo! That's already. Who doesn't know whether they are on campus on their home institution? Okay? Who doesn't have them at their home institution? This time I got at least half for the first question. This is good. So the next question is, do you have business scientists? Someone who knows about marketing, financial strategies, how to build an enterprise? Who has that on campus?
I met one, but don't know what he's doing. He was talking about business.
So he might be not in the science, but he's talking about business. That's not bad.
Maybe he wants some.
Yeah. Maybe he wants funding from you. Yeah. So the idea, asking you all about the different expertises only. So one thing about sustainability is that there are so many different aspects you can support projects with. And it doesn't, even if it's research computing, even if it's HPC, it doesn't have to be all technical. It can be also support from other areas.
So for the third bullet, do you have business scientists? Are you saying that for feedback on creating the most optimal financial strategy for supporting the infrastructure? Is that what you're kind of doing?
So yeah, I'm coming to the point. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, to have the different specialists is, for example, you need different funding opportunities, and to have a look at this, they can help. They can help not only for developing strategies, but also maybe having a different view. They look often at things like they're creating enterprises. For example, I'm a co-founder of a startup company. Of course, I look a little bit different on these finances than I look at the university. But the lessons learned from a startup company, I can also use for my research, for looking at different things differently. And someone as a business scientist can show you different perspectives. And marketing, why should you be interested in marketing? You might have a project, you want to market it to campus, to engage with really your stakeholders. And sometimes, faculty is not only your user community, they can be also your stakeholders. They can put you also on proposals to get you money. They can include you, so that it's not always only your job to write the proposals to get money in. So how to market, to create your market on campus and talk to the right people to say, yeah, let's work together. It's beneficial for both sides. And I know that marketing often sounds for a lot of people, oh no, I'm in research and I'm technical. That's true. But sometimes we have to sell our products to the right people, to the right stakeholders, and we have to learn to market our product, our services, our teams to get money. So thinking about different groups we've never worked with, or maybe Jason, for example, said they're working already with library, they're working with data scientists. And obviously, he sees the benefit from that to team up for projects, to have the expertise, and to expand the knowledge around HPC. So another sustainability aspect is, of course, the funding. And NSF has this program, the two programs, the software infrastructure of sustained innovation, which went on until last year. Now it's called the cyber infrastructure for sustained scientific innovation. So they changed it from software and combined it with data infrastructure. And if you look at this, now that it's really the highest level of in these programs, it was first small software elements, which could be extended to software frameworks and software institutes. Now it's going from elements to framework to planning grants for community cyber infrastructure, and then community cyber infrastructure implementations, central hubs. And why they are so interesting for sustainability? They are funded to support the cyber infrastructure and the community. They have the money to support projects, to support HPC, to help this project to be sustained. So support via implemented institutes is free for you, for us. These are the services they provide. So it does sound too good to be true, but yes, they get money to give you free services. So that's the right route, the right point of time to use them, if you need help with them. And there are the conceptualizations going on at the moment, and you can influence them. They are happy to get community feedback on the what are your needs? What do you need to really sustain your center, to sustain your team, to have your HPC center, the cyber infrastructure sustain? So the implementations which are in existence at the moment is the Sciencescape-based Community Institute. We already heard a little bit about it. And the Molecular Sciences Software Institute. Who has heard about the Molecular Sciences Software Institute before I mentioned it now? So that is not a good sign. So nobody, you have, maybe you have heard about it, maybe not. You're not so sure, okay. So maybe half a person has heard about it here in the room. So that is not a good sign, because who is working with you with people and molecular simulation that supports them with GORMEX, with ENVA, with helping them to get that run on HPC? Molecular simulations?
What? I didn't catch your question.
Who is working of you with researchers in molecular simulations who are working, for example, with code like GORMEX and
Oh yeah, Carl.
I wouldn't be surprised if not. HPC always works with molecular simulation. Molecular Simulation Institute, what they could help you with is, for example, to parallelize code for them, to help to make more efficient configurations. So they're delivering the services for free. And because they are paid for it. They're paid to support the community to make better code and molecular simulations and help you. So reaching you and bringing them, for example, together with your domain researchers on campus can help them to be more efficient in their research or to get questions answered, because we all agree we cannot be an expert in every domain we support. We listen, we want to help, but we cannot dive deep into every domain. But to having an institute that would work with your researchers together and then come back to you and say, oh, this is for your machine, this GPU configuration is the best one, they do it for free. Use it. And the conceptualizations which are going on at the moment are the US Research Software Sustainability Institute, I'm also part of. I think you pronounce it ERSI, and high energy physics and geospatial. So if you are interested in those areas, look them up, look what they could provide. The conceptualizations are more about finding out what an institute in the implementation, what kind of services it should deliver. So if you jump in now and give them feedback, we might be heard because we are all listening to the community in these conceptualizations because we want to help the community. So we have seen, this is the slide stolen from Henry, the CI professional ecosystem. I only added one more thing, the US research, the Software Engineer Association, because it's starting up, yes, we have our own first Slack channel. Fantastic. So we will see, we hope to get some momentum here. So the science, I will talk a little bit more about the Sciencegate Community Institute. I've only mentioned the US Research Software Engineer Association. At the moment, we don't have to say more about it than that we have a Slack channel and we already message back and forth, and we can get, of course, the feedback. So basically, the working towards sustainable software for science, practice, and experience, so that's we working with, and part also of organizing this. So that is, at the moment we discuss, since we have a conceptualization of ERSI, whether we do the meetings together, because they have almost the same goals. We are going in the direction of sustainable software, and even so, we all love to have workshops and conferences, and face-to-face meetings are great. It's, one meeting about the same topic more is of course also time. It's time and effort. So I will talk a little bit more about ERSI. So what is the state of the art of research? There's an increased complexity really of research questions, of hardware, software, lab instruments. We have increase of data volume and data formats. The landscape has never changed so fast in computation than in the last 10 years. If you look at all the different developments, the different hardware development, all the libraries, the agile frameworks. We have in the middle, we have the researcher, a little bit sad looking here. The need for end-to-end solutions really to access data, software, computing services, and equipment. And specific to the needs for science or engineering discipline. And Sciencegate can make the researcher happy. So that's the idea, that they can really work with it and work towards sustainability. So what is a Sciencegate? I'm honestly, I don't care how you call it, and everyone might not like the expression Sciencegate. So some people say it's a virtual research environment. So in Australia, a lot of people say virtual research environment. Some say research office. Some say it's a virtual lab. It's a cyber infrastructure because it's really for the end user, or it's a collaborative. So, and 77% of the active Exceed users in 2016, at the end of 2016, were gateway users. They were not going to HPC and Exceed anymore via command line. And I tried to find the new numbers, so I know that it's now a little bit in 2017 on this number, but it didn't go down. So what do we learn from this? Users want usability. Users want to have easy access to resources, which could support them with sustainability. And if you look at the life cycle of the science gateway, there's the gateway is planned and designed, and there's a ramp up, and you hopefully get a lot of active operations in the community. And then the funding ends. And you gather requirements, and you get additional funding, or you have to ramp down, and then the researchers are a little bit disappointed. So you really struggle maybe to secure sustainable funding. So to solve this familiar, that we had a nice user interface for an application which was nicely funded. For 3-4 years, the funding went away, and you had to ramp it down because you couldn't maintain it anymore. To solve this familiar. That's the way it goes, right? I mean, So the goal is to give more ideas and to help with sustainable science gateways. So the science gateway institution has created this goal. And I make this shorter because this is a workshop we want to go to more interactive pieces. But so the survey, for example, was sent out to 29,000 persons. And almost 5,000 answered. Across domains, 52 from life, physical, and aesthetical sciences, 32 from computer and information sciences, and 45% developed data collections, 44% developed data analysis. So it's really a wide community. And we asked what services would be helpful to help you to sustain your gateway, to know more about your gateway, to know more about your community. And 70% answered the evaluation impact analysis. Website analytics is important for them. What is really nice, 67% said adapting technology, not reinventing the wheel, but adapting technology. 67% also. And then choosing technologies, 66% wanting to help with that. Because there's so many, as I said, the field is emerging so fast. There's so many possibilities out there. So a well-designed gateway requires a variety of expertise. And now you know why I talked at the beginning about, so if you look at your campus, there are different groups you can work with. And you cannot always have the expertise in one person. So to have someone really a usability consultant, for example. So 34% that wish we had this. And 60% said, yes, we even had this in our projects. And the missing percentage, by the way, are the ones who were not sure or thought, oh, maybe we don't need them. But you can see the trend here. And for example, a real project manager, 45% already answered, yes, we had a project manager. But it's a task of a project manager, not doing the research. So what are tasks for a project manager?
I'm a project manager.
So what are your tasks?
My task is to make sure the team knows what they're doing, to make sure the vision is well understood, to make sure the timeline is well understood, and if any blocks come up, identify how to unblock those.
Sounds good.
There's plenty more.
How about
Stakeholder management, there's cost management. I'll just leave it at that.
So, and what would you say, so all the tasks, and which are a lot as a project manager, as you
It all
know,
sums up into reporting up to higher ups, making sure that the project is on track.
and that contributes to sustainability because you keep everything on track, keep it successful to be ready for the next stage. Huh? Because if the project is not successful, it won't be sustainable.
Well, a project has an end date.
Yes, the project always has an end date, but you want to go to the next stage afterwards. So I guess as a project manager, you would think about a year before the funding ends how it continues for you, huh? Or you just get the next project.
Yeah, I just get the next project.
So someone else is thinking about how to do the next project that you are
So
funding.
the maintenance of the project would be not the project manager's responsibility. Making sure that the project is handed off in a manner so it can be maintained by a different.
Okay. So you have already processes on campus who really say, okay, the next step, now it's a maintenance step and it's given over to the next stage. But you have to have funding also for that? For the next stage for the maintenance? Or is that is nothing, you have to deal always
all
with the
depends on
hot
the
stuff.
It's not a one size fits all.
Okay,
If we're deploying the science gateway, we identify the requirements with the researcher, put together a team that can satisfy those requirements, develop a plan, develop a schedule, determine how much it's going to cost, depending on how much time it will cost. We start working with the researcher through the milestones. Eventually, we have to deliver the science gateway and confirm that it meets the requirements of the researcher. And then at that point, it's handed off to the research team. And it's either all theirs or there's some sort of contractual agreement that's put in place with like an operations team for so many hours per month or something like that.
And that is then paid by the researchers?
Yeah, typically in a grant.
But that is an interesting model. It's one of the models thinking a little bit outside the box. They say, oh yes, the project is funded this way, but the researchers are then responsible because they want to use it for the funding, maybe for the operation. So that is, yeah, a sustainability model. And the sustainability model is to put you on the next hot stuff, huh? Very good. So yeah, the Science Gateway Community Institute has these 5 areas, and as I said, it's really for free. You apply for services, you can ask for longer term hands-on support with the extended developer support, you can ask for diverse expertise on demand, for student opportunities and educator resources and the workforce development. The community engagement and exchange is really different, sharing experiences, having a yearly conference, webinars, and we have the scientific software collaborators like Gateway Catalog. And on campus teams, so that is what I understand on the centralized, on campus teams, it's a centralized team. At your institution, that irrespective whether you are part of a university, a national lab, an organization, a consortium, or a company, you can have the centralized team just working together, even if there's one part of it is sitting in the library, some members are sitting in other areas like in business science. If you work together as a team, it's a centralized team. Because if somebody comes and says, oh, I need help, I need a marketing strategy. Can you help me from your HPC center with a marketing strategy? If you work with someone from business science together, you can say, yes, we have this colleague who's working with us and who can work with you. So that is the idea of campus teams. And for local teams, it's really still easier than for distributed teams or remote teams. Even so, we have all these fancy technology, and we're doing it here, Zooming, 200 people in, and it works mostly well. But for local teams, it's still easier to build more trust, to be more efficient, and to create a strong culture. So to create a strong culture helps with sustainability on campus. That people know that they can come to your team and get help. Not only with HPC services, but with a lot of other services. So at HPCI makes it a little bit shorter. We have an incubator sustainability program. It's also a 5-day workshop. And you can apply for this. It's a full 5 full days, and it's teams of projects. We prefer to have teams there of your daily routine and can discuss your project with us. What are the right measures to get sustained, to work on sustainability? And it takes place twice a year, and you can book additional ones if you pay our travel expenses. And we adapt it to the feedback you get. So you can work with us with the different consulting services. We have an early conference, and by the way, the early bird registration ends today. So if you want to register now, it's it takes place September 21st to 27th in Austin, in Texas. The early bird registration until tonight, Hawaiian time, midnight, I think. So you still have time to think about it. But you can be also involved as partner or affiliate. Or you can put your software and not only gateways, but also get software which helps building gateways or strategies. So for example, Globus Online is in our software gateway catalog because they want to advertise it. We had a total entry of 412 software entries now. And you can train students in internships if you are interested in this. If you are interested in having students for doing internships for certain projects, contact us. And webinars, blogs, newsletters, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can find it all at sciencegateways.org. So do you remember Henry's question yesterday? How much time do you get to learn your job as facilitator? 20 minutes? Sometimes you get maybe only minus 8. Because when we got the funding for ERSI, they told us that on the 21st of December, and they told us that we started on December 15th. That was nice, nice Christmas gift. So we just didn't know that we already started 6 days ahead. So if we look at research software, which is also a big part of research facilitation. So there was this survey in the UK and in the US. And 90% said of the researchers in the UK, yes, we use research software. And 70% even said, we can't continue without it. In the US, 95% even said, yes, we have use for our research software. And 63% said, oh, we cannot really continue without it. So, but over 50% have neither formal nor informal training in software engineering. So what does that mean? So we all know probably what it means. So it's very, let's say, fast put together for certain, in many different languages. Research software is really diverse and not always following the software engineering practices, which makes the quality sometimes questionable. But there's also a lack of career paths in the US for research software engineers, like with facilitators. So, and I'm honest, I don't even care how we call facilitators as research software engineers, research software design discussions in the last years. People said, oh, no, I'm not an engineer. I'm a research software scientist. I'm okay. I call you that. No problem. And the next one was, no, facilitator. I'm not doing software development at all. All kinds of things. I think having these names, I understand that we need names, but I don't care. If institutions are at that point, HR says, okay, it has to be this name. Yeah, that's fine with me. But we need career paths for people to make it sustainable in research, to work with research. And how to cite software that people get really also incentives to credit for their contributions to research contributions. So the areas of concern are really functioning of the individual and the team, functioning of the research software, and functioning of the research field itself. So that are the 3 areas we look at ERSI. I don't really go for each of them in detail, but only to give you an impression. So it's about training and education, like here. The different fields, technical skills, soft skills, to work together. Ensuring appropriate credit for software development. For facilitators, appropriate credit to facilitate research. That's really a chance to say, yes, if I want to go to the next stage in my career path, and I don't want to be faculty. Like, I know enough people who say, no, I like to have a Sunday and not work on a Sunday. And I like not to have a deadline on Christmas Eve for a proposal. To have, a weekend, but I still love working in research. You should have a career path for this. That's okay. And so we need application pathways for research software and research computing. For sustainability, to say yes, we can really say, oh, we can refer to something. So functioning of research software is a really big thing. As I said, there are all these ways to program, especially without any formal training or informal training. So we need to support the sustainability, because if you look at the numbers, 95% of researchers are using research software for their research. What happens if it's not sustainable? How much hours put we in there to make it really working again? Instead of, taking care of before that it's maintainable and sustainable. And yeah, the research itself. So we need really to grow the communities. That makes it true. So as he tries really to be in the middle of all the different S2I2 projects or CSSI, how they are called from this year. And so it will be overall technology and software areas that services should support. And it tries to fill the gaps. Those collaboration fill the gaps on the axis between science and engineering disciplines and the technology, and help in these areas where other institutes, other frameworks cannot jump. So we had the first workshop in April in Berkeley. The next workshop will take place in October in Chicago. We will have a software credit workshop and then incubator workshop to incubate also HPC projects. The survey in ethnographic studies. Yeah, a couple of different ways to connect with us. And normally I know speakers are not so keen on that people are on their computers. So I'm happy if you join our email list or go down in the discussion forum or tweet about this. And join us for our next workshop in Chicago, October 23 to 24. And yeah, help shaping the institute that can help in the future then projects to be sustainable, help HPC centers be sustainable, to have the support. So the lessons learned on international level about sustainability is really the Software Sustainability Institute in the UK and the UK Research Software Engineer Association. They buy-in from universities. At the beginning, directly 4, and now there are 20. And they have a viable career path now and a large community in the UK. And they are talking really also about the importance of sustainability via career paths, via people supporting the research. So the ecosystem, and I know I overwhelmed you a little bit now with all the information, but also a little bit on purpose to come to this discussion. Another newsletter you can sign up. Another discussion list, Slack channels, plenty of workshops, plenty of surveys. Like, please answer also the early survey when I send it around. So is this overwhelming? Yeah. Maybe too many scattered approaches in the area for sustainability. So how can we sustain knowledge on and collaboration with sustainability approaches? And that is a discussion I would like to have now. If I don't make you all sleepy, I hope. So if you look, for example, at Henry's travel schedule for this year, you put it on your website. What can I do? It's still the Henry show. You cannot avoid that. Show an example. Yeah, that's the way it is. With all the different projects with your project also that people know it about. Yeah, at Kirk, Henry gave a talk about the API virtual residence. That's the way it is. You advertise it. You go out there. You talk to people. You talk with people about what do I need to do to sustain my HPC center? What do I need to do to sustain projects? So the lessons learned on international levels, for example, what is different in the UK, and I said it already this morning, but that was more by accident, that was not planned. But it's a smaller country. So this is not something we can really change for the US. It will be the same big country it is, and a lot of more universities, but the culture for research computing and between software engineering and facilitation and the researchers. That is a slow process, I know. But we can work together to make it happen, to present more positive examples, how facilitation, how research computing works together with research. To write white papers, to have metrics, and to show that there's more buy-in from the research side, from HR side, from business. So what are the lessons learned from sustained projects? So we had a look at them. There was always an evangelist, someone who was really keen on keeping something alive. That might be someone like Henry for the center here, that is someone like Jarek Nabritsky at the Center for Research Computing at Notre Dame, someone like Dana, who's with the Exceed champions and keeps that alive and works on that together with Henry. And they all have a common that they use diverse mechanisms for funding. So NSF, yes, NSF is mostly the most funding agency we are going to, but there are more funding agencies. There's something like the Moore Foundation. There are more funding mechanisms like maybe you have to take something like a science fee for certain services. You really have to work on community building. That people know about your services, that people want to do it, and maybe then see the value that they would do something like a prescription. Open source and open science is a big topic. You could have volunteers who are contributing to that you don't have to pay for. Collaboration. That is really what I can say from science gateways, from research software, from being a facilitator, collaborating with different experts, with different people. So, what are now our next steps? So, if we have the evangelist for diverse initiatives, let's say Henry for ACRF, I'm here for ERSI and the Science Gateway Institute. And we know not every approach suits everyone. So the ACRF virtual residency, the workshop might fit exactly for the group here, but the incubator bootcamp of the Science Gateway Institute is interesting for another group. So it's not that one approach suits everyone, but we need a roadmap, I think, for sustainability as a community effort and for the community building. Because what can we change to change the research manager? And I don't have the answer for that. I want the answer from you. I have suggestions, but that is something I would like to discuss with you all. What helps us to change really the research culture and to work together in these sustainability projects we have going on? Because it's scattered all over the place. Now it's gotcha. And if nobody says something, I will pick people. I'm tough, I'm German. I just pick people. Oh, Horst, you were laughing. What do you think?
What do I think? I'm German too.
I know, you could take it. I didn't know that you could. there are some suggestions, but what would help us really to say, okay, this is the next step we have to do. We have to work more together.
So one thought, there sort of is a catalog on, let's call it research computing events in general. There's a website, hpcuniversity.org, that has a calendar. It's mostly education and training events, workshops, things of that nature, but it does have things like conferences as well. The biggest difficulty that I've seen in creating catalogs of this kind is you put a lot of effort into the startup of it, and then you have to go beg people to put stuff in it, and they will when you beg them. But unless are constantly vigilant about all of these events, and you beg them every single time, they never ever get in the habit of putting that stuff in there on their own initiative. And of course, I'm oversimplifying, there will be exceptions. But I've known about HPC University for a decade, and I think I've put maybe 3 events. Like I'm the ideal person who obviously should think, and this event is not in there, well, that I'm aware of. I just didn't think of it. And because nobody is chasing after me to think of these things, so pure dumb luck. Maybe I put it in.
And you just don't. No, I fully agree. That is my point. I think we can all agree. Maybe I should ask it first. Do we all agree that it would be good that all the initiatives we were talking about, all the ecosystem, that they would know about all the events they give, that they would know about different strategies they have and maybe complement each other? Who think it would be good if they all work together, discuss the events together, be complement to each other?
Oh, sure.
Sure, why not?
Of course. So, who doesn't think that is beneficial? Great. Who wants to do the work? We have one person. I like it. I love it. Woo! You want to do the work? I really love it. So I really think that is exactly what Henry said. We need someone who's chasing up all these different institutions, different organizations, institutes, to say, to have things about the events, to work together. Because I think there's so much potential. And if it's one workforce and a combined community of all these different efforts, we have just much bigger community together with the researchers to bring a culture change, to do something about it, to say we are transformed.
Well, we were talking about this with purpose of people. It seems like there's too many organizations now. We're talking about bringing them all together, but there's just as people get new grant proposals funded, there'll just be more organizations that get created. And I don't know. I mean, why isn't all this stuff just under PERC? Why is there CASC and a CART? Why is there Campus Champions and some of the other ones that are listed today? I can't keep track of them all. And people come up to me and go, "Hey, are you part of that?" And I'm like, "No, I've never heard of it before today." And seems like the big name people in the field are talking to each other, starting out these new organizations. And I don't know about them. And then they're like, "Hey, you're already busy. Come join our new group."
So I actually have a thought about that. Why do all these new organizations keep getting created? Because you can get a funding agency to put up money to create something new. You cannot get a funding agency to pay for something that already works. They only pay for transformative innovation. And the thing that already works, it's too late for it to be transformative. Transformative was what it was when they started it. Now it's just normal.
Yeah, I had to say, when I wrote the Cyber Ambassador grant, I had to give it a name, I had to give it a new group, but part of it was I didn't want to make another group, I just wanted to create materials that other groups could use. And we actually wrote that into the grant, but still they wanted it, still it's a separate new name, a separate group.
Right. And in the mind of a reviewer, if you give it a catchy name, suddenly it's a thing. So I think cyber ambassadors with the capital A in the middle of it is brilliant. And it gets into their brains when they're doing the review, and it becomes somehow psychologically, it becomes real to them. And I know this works because it totally works on me. When I'm reviewing a proposal, this is, and I don't look for it, it just works on me. There's some weird psychological trick going on where it's getting into my lizard brain. I absolutely, that absolutely resonates with me, and it raises the probability that I not only will give the proposal a good rating, but I will actually stand up for the proposal during the review panel.
Yeah, the only, I think too many things are popping up, and at least is also realizing that. So I had a discussion with two of the research officers, and they asked me, Sandra, what can we do to unify the landscape a little bit? Not totally. It's like with, workflow engine. 10 years ago, we had about 30 different workflow engines in the field of distributed computing. I would say 8 have really survived to our nowadays important, sustainable, maintainable. Maybe that is the same way with these organizations. We have to shrink them again, to consolidate them. Can they stick with their name? Yes, absolutely. But it should be clear that it's maybe an overlap between all of them, with all the goals.
Great. By the way, there's a couple of comments from the chat from Zoomland. One, an obvious candidate to do the cataloging work is the NSF, cataloging at least everything they fund. If they wanted to do it, they could. In my experience, they have a bad track record of knowing even what they do. So without getting into the politics of that, so this is my personal response. My guess is that they don't want to do any labor that changes and lowers the percentage of their funding that goes out the door to fund research. So anytime you talk about, well, if you hired, if it took a quarter FTE to do this, well, that's a quarter FTE they are not, which is effectively a grad student, that they are not paying for in somebody's research because their budget is fixed and it includes all the administrative costs as well as the grants they award. And they pride themselves on having a very, very low percentage of administrative cost. So my guess is anytime you say, well, the NSF should do this, their answer is no. Whether they should or should not do it is a separate question.
And the other thing is, if you could integrate it into a grant, I mean, it gives us more money if we get the grant, if we get it awarded. So if we think it makes sense, because that's why there were also these question marks, but maybe I should look first for all the comments. So Eric's point is well taken, and it is, I believe, being addressed at organizational levels. Bring me back, what was Eric's point again?
Too many new organizations.
Yes. Yeah, and I agree to that. I mean, I think it's really about what I like about it. So, but there are so many organizations now concerned with the ability of research computing. That is on the landscape. But I think that we don't have always all the people we should have in there. So that is, for example, my next question. So we have seen that at this meeting, we have 5 faculty. But I would guess, is someone from HR here? Is someone from a funding body here?
We lost them. They had to go to a meeting at another organization the same week. One person signed up. That's the first time that's ever happened, but they had to go somewhere else. No, from one funding agency.
No, I only wanted to say, of course, this workshop I know is totally open in that direction. But maybe we have to put more effort to get also our stakeholders, our users to these meetings, to give them a platform, to integrate them. Because we can talk as often as we want about how important we think that it is to speak to faculty or to talk to HR, to have career paths. If we don't talk with them, they don't know that we are even considering it, talking with them. So, I mean, that is something I think we have also to work on, to have the diversity at our meetings. Because when we say we want to work with them and have we have the session on communication. How brilliant would have been to have maybe 5 researchers like last year in the in the second or third workshop. I don't know whether you have done it all the 3 workshops. There were researchers. That was also brilliant to have real researchers there to train, and they know that something is going on. Maybe we have to extend things like that. As I said, I don't really have the answer to this question, and I agree to Aaron that we shouldn't have so many organizations. But now we are at this point. What is our next step? I would love to have the answer. I really don't know. But I think it's not good for sustainability to have all these scattered landscapes.
Yeah, I like the idea of exchanging instructors between events, because that way more people can get on the same page and have some cross-fertilization.
Cross-fertilization, yes, I like that. So, yeah, I mean, that is one of the things. I'm here, so thanks to Henry, who let me be part of the program. And I'm part of the freelance, I'm part of the Science Gateway Institute. So I talk also at the other events about the ACI REF. But these are three things I'm talking about, and we have 20 of them. I mean, and I'm sure, I mean, this is a workshop and I already overwhelmed you with all the details in the 50. So to do it in this detail for 20 different organizations is almost impossible without making mistakes. And with having still some substantial information. So, but what do you think about the idea that, yes, we need an evangelist for the different ones, organizations, and an outreach specialist who's putting all the information together?
I mean, it's not, how do I say this? So I'm trying to get into this world. I'm relatively new at this world. I've been in it for about a year, more or less. And as we've discussed, that's not even my FTE. Like, this is not my job yet. It might be at some point, but it's not now. And so from that perspective, like when I was working with many of us in this room and many out in TV land, right? I got tired reading the list about all of. Hey, Henry, like, it'd be nice to have some conversations at this event here on this ecosystem because I don't even know where to start. And so as someone trying to get into this world, it's hard to know because, as we've all talked about, right, the Venn diagrams overlap to some greater or lesser extent among all of these organizations. And so I think what would have been helpful for me is for somebody, whether that's us, whether it's, I don't care, NSF, whether it's CARP, whatever, I don't care. Somebody's going to have to make, or at least it would have been helpful for me to see a valued and opinionated kind of assessment about this is how you start with these groups. Like if you're just getting started, these are the 2 or 3 you might want to get connected with because they're broader rather than deep in a specific area. And then once you get into mid-career and you're getting in your specialties, these ones might be more useful for these facets. Now that takes effort. And you're bound to irritate some people because wherever you slot something, members of that group are going to say, no, I don't think that this is where we are, we're over here. but I don't really care. Like, I mean, at least that's a start for someone to make a valued, judgmental opinion on this whole ecosystem and say, if you want to enter this ecosystem, these are your easiest points in, and we'll give you the broadest, chance to kind of start to meet enough people to make it easy. Because I'm still confused. I mean, I cannot, because all of these, they have a 2 to 5 day conference each year. I can't go to all of those. They all have mailing lists. They all have hour calls each week. And so for every hour call that we do, that's about 2.5% of my week gone that I'm dedicated to that. So I can't do, more than a couple of those. It just starts to get tiring. And I don't want this to be tiring. I want it to be invigorating and interesting and helpful and all this kind of stuff. And right now it's just not. So I would think someone needs to say, this is my opinion of these groups and which ones are most helpful for the different types of things you're trying to leverage. For students, for early career researchers, for people who want to teach others versus people who want to learn something. I don't know. Just something.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and actually do the thing you want.
Okay.
Even though, by the way, I know why people have not done it. It's because it changes every 20 minutes.
Yes, it does. And
Having
it's also
said
very
that,
political.
and in fact, the slide that Sandra had that had all the different organizations in the ecosystem, which is by no means exhaustive.
Right.
It filled the whole slide. The overwhelming majority of those are less than 5 years old.
Right.
But having said all of that, if you join the Campus Champions, you will be spammed about everything else on there.
Yeah.
That's the most effective way to get the information you need.
And I'm part of Campus Champions. I mean, you're on it. We've seen the mailing list. It's a busy mailing list, and then there's the Slack conversation groups, and it's like it is so much information overload. But I love what you said in that I'm glad people are concerned about it. Like, I'm glad that there are enough people participating in these different avenues that they are, at least over this shorter term, that they've been sustainable. That there's been sustained interest over the last 5-ish years to drive all of these forward. Cries out that, yeah, we need these types of organizations. I hate the fragmentation, and it's so frustrating.
I totally agree to. Sorry.
No. So the other piece of it, so I love the fragmentation in the following sense, because I've been in the business for more than 5 years. Prior to 5 years ago, the level of interest in the cyber infrastructure workforce nationally and worldwide was not literally zero, but it was awfully close to zero. 5 years ago, roughly, that changed, and now the level of interest is gigantic.
Right.
And I'm not sure I understand what changed in that time. We're in a magical moment in cyber infrastructure professional history. It is unlikely to last. And if I have to choose between nobody cares and there's way too much, I'm going to pick there's way too much every time.
Absolutely. That is my point about this discussion. I hope that we have ideas as a community to make it not so painful, to make it not overwhelming, that we keep the momentum for something that will really change culture, that really something comes out of this phase, and not that it was a hype for maybe 5 years, and then it goes away without being really recognized by the domain researchers, without having really an effect. That would be really sad, because we have the energy at the moment. We have money to do something. We should do something. And if I would be sure of what it should be, then we should I would just do it. But I'm not sure. Because I know that the different groups have different facets. And for example, if you would tell me now, oh, we don't need a nursing, I would be very sad, because I thought the idea is really good for this institute. It could be funded for up to 10 years by NSF, and I would have so many reasons why we shouldn't raise that from the list. So, and this is probably for each of the groups that someone stands there and says, oh, no, but we can fulfill this need. So I'm really not sure how to solve it. The only thing I'm sure about is that we really should collaborate more closely together and bring the community together and for stakeholders and real users. And of course, you cannot go to every of the events. I mean, I would love to see you all at the Gateways conference. As I said, today is early bird registration deadline. And it's nice in, in Texas and Austin. So there will be also end users, researchers, domain researchers. So maybe someone you haven't met yet and would be interesting. But yes, what is another thing what we could do now? And I totally agree. If you come new into this field, it's overwhelming. It's frustrating. I can see that. And I'm happy if Henry writes an opinion about the different initiatives. And I'm happy even to support him. I would be happy not to have my name on it.
So when you make this list of, you enter into the field, enter these organizations, you write it up as something that gets published?
No, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to send it to all of the contacts I have, which are by no means all of the research computing facilitators in the US, but are a pretty good fraction of them. And I'm going to say, if you're not already a campus champion, you ought to be a campus champion, because by being a campus champion, you find out about everything else that's going on that's relevant to research computing facilitation. Beyond that, part of the problem is that whatever opinion I might have is going to be factually irrelevant in some relatively brief, all evolving very, very rapidly, right? 2 years ago, there was no such thing as PERC. And 3 years ago, there was no such thing as the virtual residency. And 4 years ago, there was no such thing as ACIRF, right? These are all brand spanking new. The only one that's got any legs is Campus Champions. How long have they been around? I hope everybody knows the answer to this one.
2 years.
10 years. This month, I think. Last month. 10 years last month, right? But all that other stuff is in massive flux right now. The Campus Champions are in flux too. They're just not changing as rapidly as these other things. So information from 10 minutes ago is no longer useful. And that's it's certainly not unique to research computing facilitation. What we should be more focused on is, and I think this goes back to what Jason was saying, how do we get them to converge so that it's not 50 different things, but a few things that have multiple facets? We can have all 50 of the different capabilities, but they don't have to be in 50 different organizations.
Yeah.
And maybe part of this is having a hidden secret agenda that as things come online, we find ways to adopt them, particularly as their external funding dries up. Because inevitably, like Cyber Ambassadors is not going to have NSF funding for 10 years, right? You got 3 years, right?
And I'm not planning to go for more. I want to sustain it.
Right, and so it would be good if we could figure out a way for these kinds of things to converge together. And I'm advocating that that ought to happen, and we'll get the outcome you're looking for without losing the momentum that we've stumbled onto.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are familiar with, say, larger, let's say, academic groups like, the American Anthropological Association, right? But under that umbrella, there are tons of facets where people can align, but they all get together and they're all cross-pollinating and talking and stuff, but you can really live your life within one or two of the silos that are all under there, but they all share communication, they all share, often annual meetings, they all share publications, they all share that. And I think that's exactly what I'm looking for, is sort of a parent organization or umbrella that brings together multiple facets that allow people to still be all under that one umbrella, but you can still do these individual tracks. So parallel tracks at a week-long meeting. One track's the PERC one track is the, ACI REFL one, who knows, but that's kind of where I'm going at that. Now that's a lot of overhead and administration, and we're not there tomorrow, but I would love for that to be the trajectory of this kind of thing.
So one thing that I've noticed about professional societies that we have to make a decision on as a community is how much money is each of us willing to pay out of pocket? I'm a member of ACM, which is the CS Professional Society. I'm a member of IEEE Computer Society. I'm a member of SciAm. Collectively, those things are costing me mid-3 figures per year. How many of you are willing to spend mid-3 figures per year of your own money? Because your institution will not buy your membership in our professional society, whatever it might be called, any more than it would do in ACM or whatever, or APS or APA. Are you willing to pay mid-3 figures per year to do this?
I think there has to be a compelling case for why that investment would give
Sure.
you a return.
And it might be that a cheaper alternative would go somewhere where they're already getting your money, right? And there are a number of organizations like that are already getting either your money personally or your institution's money that you could glom onto.
I mean, one quick point about a lot of academic things. I mean, a lot of them have costs like that, but their meeting costs aren't hundreds of dollars. I mean, you know, it's hundreds of dollars. And so the economics of these is interesting. You know, how do you balance it with membership fees versus conference fees versus whatever? But many of those organizations don't front load you with both a high membership fee and high fees to attend their meetings.
So if I think about, for example, the SC conference is sponsored by ACM and IEEE CS, but the registration, based on how I do it, the registration is somewhere around $650, plus the hundreds of dollars I'm spending on group memberships. And that's the discounted registration because I'm a member of those groups. If I wasn't a member of one of those, then I'd pay a couple hundred more, I think, something along those lines. So I agree with you up to a point, but it is certainly the case that if you are, for example, a computing professional who belongs to the professional society, goes to the conferences, between you and your institution, you're in for probably a couple grand a year.
Sorry, we have also 2 comments from TV. One was about the campus champions. So Brett Urban said, I have my campus champions email filtered to its own category with a recurring event on my calendar to check it once a week to keep up with everything. Thank you, Brett. Patrick Demon said, I believe the best way to change the research culture is to be really good at our jobs. Researchers see that the value of facilitators, they will seek them out for help and project. I would like to react on this. Yes, I agree, but we have to talk about it. The problem is that researchers have to hear about it, that we are really good at our jobs. And if their colleagues are not talking about it, they don't really maybe see even white papers, maybe see even something like success stories. How should they know that we are good at our job? If all the colleagues are normally working with, for example, let's say humanities, they're not working with the HPC center yet. We have a group also at Notre Dame on campus. They haven't worked until 2 years ago with HPC at all. And not that they wouldn't do it after they worked the first time with us. After that, yes, they come back. But before they just didn't know that we exist. They just didn't know that it would be useful for them. And that we have the different services. So yeah, I agree, we have to be really good at maybe mouse. Yeah, let's say marketing works for a bit. But I don't think that's enough, and it's also not fast enough to fix the momentum at the moment. That would be my opinion. So any further comments?